What's up, everybody? Happy to be back again. Beat the odds pod. What's up, guys? How you guys feeling?
Feeling good, man. It's been a hell of a Monday, but feeling really good, man. How y'all feeling?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna
What
be
about you,
honest,
Brylan?
bro. Yeah. Everybody knows the winter in Chicago sucks. Today was 55 degrees, so everybody and their mama was outside like it was summer. And so today has been a good day. Can't complain.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, it's funny because it's like, wait, are y'all working today? Because it's a federal holiday. I think, what is it, President's Day?
Yeah,
Y'all,
yeah.
have y'all been
We're
working?
working. We're working.
Yeah,
We're working.
they working.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't give your
I don't
employees
think
the day
holidays are
off.
respected anymore.
No, it's not even that I don't even give them the day off. So they already had a when I acquired this business, they already had a holiday
Schedule.
calendar set.
Yeah.
Yeah, they already had it. So I'm like, I'm not gonna change nothing yet. So I'm just flowing with the calendar they already had.
Okay,
So
okay,
they
okay.
working President's Day. We working President's Day. That is.
Did you introduce yourself to the whole company?
I did, yeah, I did. I introduced myself the week 2 weeks after we,
Yeah,
closed on it,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
What was that
yeah,
like? Like, yeah. How was it received?
You never really know, bro, because all I know is my perception of, like, being on a video call and just talking or whatever the case may be, but behind the scenes, you never really know what's
yeah.
going on.
Side
You know it's
conversations.
Yeah, it's side conversations, it's chatter, and I did hear that, like, the team was a little bit concerned around some changes. There's always gonna be questions around job security. Unfortunately, we've had clients, like, actual clients we service right now that have been purchased by private equity companies, and then our relationship with that client changes, right? Because now it's the PE firm running it. So now the way they think
Yeah,
about budget, the way they think about allocation of budget, the way they think about even process and invoice and cash flow is just different, right? I think there's, like, a little bit of just nervousness amongst the team in terms of, like, well, are we going to turn into that? You know what I'm saying? So I think from my position, it's all about, I mean, we're going to talk about it like destabilization, right? But it's all about creating a stable environment, right? Where the team can feel
yeah,
confident that there are going to be some changes, but not unthoughtful, unstructured changes, right? So I'm just navigating that. What the side conversations are, I don't really know. I know the noise is happening, but I got to black it out
yeah.
to lead the team. So yeah.
I find when new executives or new owners come in, they don't immediately start making changes. And what it is that they're observing. And that's really what it is. Y'all
Mm-hmm.
come in, we come
100%.
in, and you don't make any changes. You kind of just let everybody kind of do what they already were doing. You might set up a meeting here and there with particular, you know, people. Yeah.
100%. It's crazy. It's crazy because you're right. I am in that learning phase, and then I do start thinking about some of the changes, and I laugh one day. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to make some changes that, like, this is the reason why they hate private equity companies.
Yeah.
Like, I know those
Yeah.
changes that are coming,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but I mean that's just the nature of the game, right? Hey, we all choose
Yeah.
to play a game, so you got to play what the rules are.
Exactly. Yeah, and you gotta know who you gotta identify who's influential. There's see, when you come into
It's
a
the game.
company, I think a lot of leaders don't the best leaders know this, but there are people who influence the company in a more strategic way than even leadership is aware of sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have
100%.
people who are they're ICs, they just have a regular job, but they're contributing a lot to maybe morale, they're moving things
Mm-hmm.
around. And if you don't know who those people are and you accidentally step on their toes or you clip them, you could be doing a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more damage than you than
100%.
you anticipate. So you can't underestimate anybody, is basically what I'm getting at. But
100%.
yeah. So before we started the pod, there was a lot of we were talking about. I think the first thing was just Waymo, and I think we touched on it on the last pod, where we're gonna go more into detail about it on this one because I think it started with you know I think it started with earlier today, right? Where I called Waymo from the San Francisco airport to my hotel and takes, a few minutes to pull up. It's an hour and a half ride, by the way. So it was a long ride. $50. Not bad. Not bad. In LA, that would have been about $100, especially if it was like Uber Black. And then, or maybe it would have been like 70. Then it pulls up, walk up to it, pop open the trunk. I got two bags, two check bag size, so not carry on size. And then one with like a personal item bag on top. Throw it in the back. I start getting worried about like it's blocking the window, but I was like, wait, hold on. there's no driver. So it don't need to see out the back. So it's
You're
blocking the
funny.
window. It's blocking the window, whatever, no problems. I close it. And then, I like to hop in the front. I want to see, what's going on. Like when I be talking to my mom, she says like, look, she hasn't rode one yet because she's in Michigan. That's coming later this year. She's always like, I couldn't be in the front because if I'm in the front, I'm gonna touch the wheel. If I'm in the front, I'm gonna grab the wheel, and that always makes me think about maybe one day they might like, 'cause that wheel do be moving, and it has a
Mm.
sticker like "Don't touch it." But I always wondered like, what happens if you touch that wheel? Anyways, though, I like to hop in the front. I started off in the back, but I hop in the front and I just watch the Waymo, right? And what I do is I lean it all the way back like this. I be in the back like I'm in the front like this, lean back, lean back. It's an hour and a half ride, right? I'm lean back like. So I'm just thinking about the future and shit because I'm literally I'm leaning back, chilling. I got my power beats on. I'm thinking about the future and shit. I'm like, this experience is what the future is going to be like. It is the future. In fact, these are things that we thought about in the abstract, 5, 10 years ago when all of us on this call first came to the Bay Area. And now it's real. It's here. And not only is it in San Francisco, it's in LA, it's in Atlanta, it's in Miami. It just came out in Houston, it's in Austin.
Nashville.
It's Nashville is coming to Michigan, probably Detroit, East Lansing, Ann Arbor, like it's not a game, it's not a joke. It is real. And these drivers have things to think about, but it's not just the drivers. So we talked about that. But the concept that we wanted to get into is this idea of two things happening at once. Okay. Which is that there's acceleration and there's destabilization. And I think that makes for very confusing times. I think if people are having some weird sense about what's going on, like the equilibrium, it could be from the fact that there is a lot of destabilizing things and accelerating things. And sometimes those things are just actually connected. So for example, Waymo, drivers, that changes everything. That changes everything. That's going to change the mechanics of how things go. Additionally, it adds not only does it take away jobs from drivers, but it also adds jobs. I was on X the other day. I see a post and it's DoorDash offering people 5, 7, $8 to pull up and close Waymo doors. Cause I guess some people are, getting out the Waymo and just forgetting to close the door behind them. And that's something that you don't think about, right? Because I always close the door. So I never would have thought about that. But I guess that is something important that you don't, when you roll out a V1 of a product, you don't think, hey, wait, people might not close the door. And so the Waymo will just be stuck there. Like it'll just be
Mhm.
sitting there, door wide open. So then in the meantime, they'll put the job on DoorDash. And so you can see how a job can be taken away, but then also a job could be added just as quickly. That's unusual that you've never seen before. So I just wanted to set the stage a little bit and maybe, open it up.
Yeah, I think I mean, to hit on that point of like, a job loss, a job replaced, I think, going back to what we were discussing before, that's why I don't think I really fall into this camp of like bucketing everything into a job. I think it's a lot more nuanced when you break things down into like tasks, right? Because that's the task just changed, in relation to that. I think yeah, I'll never forget when I rode in my first Waymo. It was literally in San Francisco. We were headed to the Golden Gate Bridge. And if anyone has ever traveled from like Fisherman's Wharf to the Golden Gate Bridge, it's so many loops and turns, like all these corners, like, and people are walking on the side of the street. So even as a human driver, like you could be hitting a corner where you may not see that person walking very close to the corner, and potentially hit them. And I'll never forget, we were going around it, and there was an intersection where it essentially like cut off, and you either had to go right or left. And I was like, oh shoot, this is actually a little bit more complex. I had never thought of that, and I had driven that same area, but I was like, okay, this is a little bit more complex. What is it about to do? And in the corner of my eye, I saw that there was a human being like coming around the corner, but because they have the dash and it will show you what it's seeing on it or whatever, it wasn't picking up the person around the corner. So I was like, "Oh shit, like how's this about to happen?" And when I tell you in that moment how it like approached it one with it was like this confident, cautious feeling where like it was confident in the decision that it was making, like it was still gonna go around that route. But as soon as it did pick up that human being, like it slowed down just enough for it not to like, be too crazy of a turn. And if something with that person would have did something, like it could have easily probably avoided it. And I remember in that moment I was like, damn, they've really solved human decision making. And I don't think we've really considered like everything that goes into making that possible, and the fact that like it's taken them a very long time to like get here. But if we think about exponential curves, they're usually really flat until they're not. I think we're on the verge of it not being that. And I think, obviously, yeah, I was doing some reading earlier. The number of trips that Waymo, has done has grown like tremendously. I think they last year or something they did 15 million paid trips. And then the CEO recently came out and said they expect Waymo to hit 1 million paid weekly trips in the US alone by the end of the year. And so that's 56 million or whatever, how many weeks or whatever. So they're essentially almost tripling. And so to your point of like, things accelerating, it's crazy how the world looks now until suddenly it doesn't. And these cars are going to be everywhere. That
Yeah, I share the same sentiment. I'm really impressed. I mean, I have not ridden in Waymo, but I am impressed at where it started because I remember like years ago, I don't know, we had to be in what, high school? Because I mean, way
yeah, yeah.
before it was Waymo, it was something else, right? It was just an internal project of Google. Like we were young when I think they first show like the first car. It looks stupid, right? And then when we like Google's working on self driving cars, it's just like, oh, why? You know, like I don't know. It didn't make sense, right? And to see where they are now is amazing. But I think even like several steps ahead, which I'm sure you guys do too. And I think about what Waymo really is to me is a logistics platform, right? And today it's just focused on human point to point, right? Which is a massive TAM just in the US and beyond. I mean, is crazy. I think in the US, I think Lyft or Uber did the study. It's like $1 trillion opportunity just in the US alone. You're talking about just rideshare, right? And so if we talk about other forms of point to point logistics, whether it's last mile, package delivery. I just saw earlier today, I was just sitting outside in front of my house. I saw a UPS truck, a FedEx truck, and a USPS truck all within like 30 minutes of each other, just riding down the street. So you can imagine what that starts to look like when that could be powered by Waymo, right? Or whatever provider it may be. And so I'm just super excited about that future when they go just beyond humans and just start delivering everything. And then I think about like the effects of that. Like we talked about, like, yes, that does create other jobs, but there's a crap ton of jobs in this country that are just based on point to point delivery. A lot.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
millions, right? And
yeah,
so I don't know if the door closed tasks are going to be that in and of abundance where like
no,
these millions
no.
of drivers are going to be preoccupied. So it's going to be interesting to see like what gets figured out to like compensate for some of these lost opportunities because it is what it is, but it's coming.
Soon.
What I
Yeah.
soon and what I see is I think Brylan is right, but he's also not fully speaking to the loss of control people will feel. Like that's the thing that I think is going to be the most destabilizing. So if I've been doing a certain particular task or job for 5, 10 years and it gets automated, there may exist other opportunities that I can do with my skill set, but I've never ever had to adapt like that before in my life. And that in itself can be destabilizing. And that in itself, everybody will not necessarily, handle that destabilization in a healthy way. And in fact, I believe that we're going to need a lot of compassion for the world that we're going into because these things will challenge people's internal resilience. It will challenge people's sense of security. It will challenge people's sense of it's going to challenge a lot of things. Ultimately, though, where people want to be at is just embracing the future and letting go control and embracing uncertainty. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. But that's ultimately where people are going to want to end up, including myself. I see engineering changing per day. And my job it's I'll just go ahead and say it's easy. It's just unbelievably easy at this point. You know, like, to the point where I feel like there is no excuse not to get my work done, and at some point, it'll be even easier to get more stuff done, and it starts to beg the question, how much am I needed in this role? At the moment, I am needed because you need somebody to be held responsible or accountable for outcomes. Just because you take away the particular specific work, you still may want to have somebody whose responsibility it is. Because, for example, if you were to remove a whole engineering team and it was just one person, so then now is that person now accountable for every single bug that the AI pops up? Are they accountable for security issues? And you know they have no idea what those are. Are they accountable? So I think there is going to still be responsibility and accountability, and those may end up being the thing. And in a lot of ways, maybe people start turning into managers, start turning more into a little bit more, managerial, being able to lead. But yeah, leaning back in that waymo had me thinking about the future, and it started making me thinking about how quickly the robots are gonna be walking around. These things are not going to be like it's going to feel like you blink your eye and these things are there.
I do think you bring up a good point, which I think the conversation should be had more now because I think the comparable is kind of like social media, right? I think and Shamoff has been more open about this, is that for a long time, like the tech industry has kind of hidden the effects of social media and the changes it has had on society. Right? I think Shamoff kind of said it best, which is like it's completely changed the fabric of society, like how people see themselves, how they see their communities, how kids view themselves. Like the data is there now. Clearly, social media has changed society by at large. It just has, right? And it's hard to undo that change at this particular point. I do think the industrialization of robots, whether it be self-driving cars, whether it be robots more in factories, which has already been like a thing that's been happening quite a bit, whatever it may be, I do really believe that that's going to not only change society from the stance of a productivity standpoint, but I think from a psychological standpoint, I do think it has tremendous impact because look, we're from the Midwest. I mean, we grew up. At least for me, I speak for myself. I grew up in a blue collar family. Okay, I grew up with a lot of folks that went to college, got degrees, went into white collar work, went and work in office. But a lot of my family grew up working in factories, migrated from the south to the north to work these blue collar jobs, which are highly skilled, highly paid, highly advanced jobs. And so there's a deep sense of pride, deep sense of purpose there. And I think, again, whether you change the task out or not, I do think it will have a massive impact psychologically where people
Yes.
are questioning what is my purpose, and people are already questioning
Facts.
that, right? But they're really questioning what is my purpose, what is my means of production to support my family, to support my community, to achieve the dreams that I want. And when that starts to get automated and eaten away, man, I think the impact is going to be immense. And so we don't know what that looks like because we've never been there before. But I think it's better to have the conversations now because, again, if we just look at social media and how that played out at scale, I don't think it's hard to try to extrapolate it out to see what it looks like on this side of it.
So actually two questions because I think you hit on a few things. The first one is, yeah, I think the everyday person, when they think of robotics, they think of the Tesla Optimus robot, these humanoid robots. But obviously, robotics is a lot more than that. So I'm curious to hear like how y'all define it. Like, yeah, like what's in that bucket of like robotics? And obviously, we believe that like self-driving cars, that's just a robot on wheels. But the other thing that I think, would be interesting to talk about is, yeah, if we're going to have this mass impact on the workforce, what how does that triculate down into like the economy, specifically when it comes to like prices, like because human labor has always been like the most expensive component in a lot of work. If you're removing that now, does that mean we're going to see like lower prices? And I think that's kind of been the argument I think Elon has been making recently, where he's like, it's going to be this abundant naturally because, prices are going to be so low and the dollar is going to hopefully be so strong with, what Trump is doing, et cetera, that, it doesn't matter how much money you have, like everybody's going to live in abundance because, yeah, the means of production is decreasing so rapidly because we're getting humans out of the equation. So yeah, those two things I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts.
In LA, sometimes I have to move out of the robot's way. We have robot delivery bots that deliver food. We've had them for, 3 years at least, potentially 4 or 5. I have to move out of their way sometimes. Sometimes I'm walking and I walk a lot and it like they're like zigzagging on the sidewalk and they're like a little slow. And I had to move out the robot. And, so that's one type of robot. That may not be the Tesla robot, but it is a robot. There will be Tesla robots though, and similar robots like the Tesla robot, likely in 5 to 7 years, likely walking the streets. I'm not talking about like they'll be walking. I'm not saying they're going to be like cleaning everything and but you may see, "Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that." That's kinda like how with the Waymos, right? 4 years ago, I saw one Waymo. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. There's no driver in there." Then I was like, "Oh, whatever." And next year, I see a couple more. I'm like, "Hey, you guys see that? Like, there's no driver in that car. Y'all see this?" Then whatever. Then the 3rd year is like, okay, there may be a beta coming. So there's that, and now it's a full-blown, "Hey, we're going to change America." The what you guys know, most of these cities I'm not gonna say it's gonna be in every single city in America, but it's gonna be in the biggest hubs. So anywhere you travel, for the most part, almost everybody will have taken that's a stretch. I'll just say they'll be very common for people to have rolled in a Waymo by the end of the year. It'll be common. It won't be everybody, and by in a couple of years, it'll be nearly everybody. Now, to the second thing that Brylan said about price, about what does it do to the economy? I'm with Elon as far as the abundance factor. I think theoretically prices will go down. I think prices will go down, but I can't speak to anything that's going on in the Trump administration or any administration afterwards because he's going to be in there for 3 more years. And then another administration will be in there, whether or not it's a continuation or not, depends on how the election goes. So it's kind of hard to say how like inflation might go. Inflation could affect that abundance vision in some way where prices could be going down, but then your dollar is worth less for some reason. So it could be kind of complicated. So I don't want to speak too concretely on that.
That's a good point. I have no idea how price is going to be. I can't see why businesses will lower prices. I mean, I think if anything, you will have more competition, which naturally I think that starts to lower prices. But then I think that starts to commoditize whatever set of services that are being purchased. So then at some point, do they start to die off, and then it starts to become monopolized again, and then you just get into this cyclical cycle? I don't know. It's tough to say. On the other front, I'm in a exploratory mode right now because I'm actually interested in acquiring a factory. I don't necessarily have like a target on my foresight right now. However, I'm touring factories. So like I have a tour coming up this Sunday actually at a chemical factory that I'm going to tour. And I was talking to the production manager that runs it, and it's highly automated. It's very, very highly automated. And the company has been slowly, continuously automated it over the past several decades. It didn't start off this way, but it has slowly started to become more automated. And so that obviously has driven a lot more margin, right? A lot more margin, a lot more profit for the business. Not that they necessarily change their prices to the end customers. I don't think so, right? But I think that's what I'm still learning right now. And so I'm mostly interested in how robots are taking over factories. This has been something that's just been happening for decades. And I find that to be really, really interesting. And so that's kind of where I'm starting at right now. Again, I'm still super early in my thesis, but I do think we're definitely going to see a lot more automated factories. I think factories are already more automated than what most people would think they are. And I think it's just going to become even more like that. And so again, I think the impact to the economy, I think the impact to the economy is going to be much larger than we think. But I think it's going to be a slow thing that's going to happen. People are already at an all-time high. Depression, the way people think about themselves, and self-esteem is already at an all-time low. I mean, you take away a person's means of production. I mean, what else do they have? I hate to form it that way. I hope it's not that way, but I just don't see how it's not, honestly. And maybe I'm just too narrow in
Yeah.
my thinking.
No, I personally, I mean, there's a lot that I agree with you both on. I think, yeah, one thing that I would add, because you bring up a really good point about these factories, and because they're hidden essentially, And unless you've walked in one or know someone that's worked in one, you have no clue on how they are like, operating. Yeah, one of the things I would recommend people to like look into is like the idea of like dark factories. And so Bloomberg recently had a really good kind of like mini documentary on like the dark factories that China has been building. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically dark and it's all robotics. And I think that's where a lot of the future is going to go. But I don't want to overlook the robotics that does not look like a human being, especially when it comes to, honestly, I feel like this is going to end up eating up most of the task, in my opinion. But like thinking about, let's say, for example, you got a dishwasher working at a restaurant or something, right? Or the cooks, because I know they have these type of robots in LA. That doesn't require a humanoid robot. You just need an arm and some tools, and it just
Mhm.
needs to have the intelligence to be able to know I need to flip this, have awareness of the environment. And I think that same mode of robotics can be applied to a lot of different tasks. And so, yeah, if I'm someone, I think, obviously, yes, these humanoid robots are coming, but you may end up missing the real risk by not seeing the minute task that doesn't require another like full human being, but just needs an arm and a tool and some simple intelligence. And what we know right now is each of those three pieces of that equation are accelerating by themselves. The hardware is starting to get better. The tooling is starting to get better. We're obviously seeing these underlying like models start to get better. And so I think, yeah, that's an area of robotics where I'm like, yeah,
Well,
hopefully people are
well,
waiting
well,
for.
that's where a lot of the jobs are in these factories, right? Like if you go into like a Detroit automotive factory, right, and you just look at like an assembly line, a lot of those workers are doing exactly what it sounds like. They're on an assembly line, just assembling pieces, right? And so to your point, how much human need is there really in just lining up one part with another part and putting some type of fastener in there, right? Like when you really break it down like that, right? Like, yeah, you might have to do that 100,000 times on a car, but at some point you start to eat away at those tasks and you really don't need a person, right? Like you really can start to automate it. To your point, right? You get the right arm, you get the right mechanical arm, you get the right angles, you get the right, swapping of the tools, right? You start to really automate that whole process and you're right. And yeah, I have been looking at the dark factories in China, bro. China is so interesting, bro. Like I think every American should like have the opportunity to like go to China, go to Asia and kind of see what the hell is going on. Because I think the average American has this false perception of China. This honestly just been built incorrectly by the media. I think we are taught that China is just so far behind, still far behind, that America is so far ahead in many areas. America's the best. We have the best of everything. We know that's not true, but that actually is what's like often taught in our society and our culture, and we tend to look down on other cultures, specifically like Chinese individuals. And when you go there and you like see what's going on there, like one of my boys just got back from a factory tour there, and again, he's a production manager for a factory here in Chicago at a chemicals plant. Bro, he was blown away. He's finishing up his MBA right now, and as part of that, he has a capstone project where they run around all throughout Asia. He went to Vietnam, he went to Singapore, went to a ton of different Asian countries and just observed their factories and how they produce products. Bro, it is beyond like all it's just beyond anything we have in the US, bro. It is totally beyond. So I think China has crossed that chasm where we thought they were versus where they actually are just because of how they report news in the country, right? Like they have a lot of control over how information gets out. And so unless it's fully broadcasted out, like we don't really know, right? So you kind of got to be there to kind of see it. And it's quite interesting. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's convinced me to make a trip to China, hopefully before the end of the year, just so I can take a peek at what they got going on, because they are oftentimes inside of the zeitgeist, especially in these conversations about AI. Before we move on to the next topic, the one thing I do want to touch on, especially is that psychological thing that we're talking about when people have less jobs and things of that nature. I think what may happen is this. This is just a theory. So, like Shamath said, social media hid the effects of social media because it was bad for business. And so we're seeing a lot of bad effects. I often think on almost a daily basis at this point. that we've lost a lot of people to social media. And it's not obvious to everybody yet that we have lost a lot of people to social media because they're still alive. They're still alive. They still go do typical things, but in the mind, something is not right. In the mind, the view of the self, the view of others, the way they relate, the way we relate to each other, something is not the same, and it was taken away when the masses, including us, were brought onto these platforms with no idea of how it was gonna affect, and there was probably some early signs, and I would like to s and but taking away some of these jobs and automation, et cetera, I think people will find a way to contribute, and what may happen is people return back to direct connection as opposed to these tools that promise connection, promise to keep you connected with family, promise to keep you connected to friends, promise to keep you, to learn more about the world and see other people, etc. I think there may be a return to that because people are not. There's going to be some hard times, but then people are not going to just all fall out. There's gonna be people who, dive into the community more and find a way to be useful there. They're gonna, lean on family more, hopefully spend more time with family. If people have kids, maybe they'll have, or who might, if there's less tasks, maybe there's some supplement with cash, UBI, or whatever have you. And maybe people have more time to have kids and to spend more time with their kids, etc. There's a lot of different things potentially that may happen that we can't see happening right now. I know a lot of people are looking at their current trajectory, not seeing how they can have a career and have kids and have the American dream. And so we might see some changes on that, but time will tell. Time will tell.
I do want to say one thing because I know UBI has like popped up a lot as a potential like safety net. But I think if you look at the current reality, obviously things like Social Security, things of that nature, has already been a safety net that has, essentially evaporated. If you dive even deeper into cities, say, take for example, like Chicago, many of these cities don't even have the money to be able to pay pensions for public like workers, which make up a large swath of the economy. And so the underlying safety net for most of America does not exist. I think where I would push back on UBI is once again, it comes back to how do you fund it? And the reality is it's always going to come back to taxes. And if we see the natural reactions that are already happening, say for example with wealthy folks in California in relation to taxes, I don't that's where most of the money to be able to fund these type of programs is going to have to come unless we're saying, obviously there's other form of taxes like tariffs, things of that
I mean,
nature.
you could just print money, right?
You could just print money, but now we in debt. Like, like the economic situation, like it's so interesting because in my head, the way I see it is like, we're seeing the technological impact of things, but when that trickles down into like the economy, not only in terms of labor, but also like the monetary things that have to be done, like fiscal things that have to be done to like actually regulate like job loss because once again remember that is the job of the Fed. The job of the Fed is to help balance price stabilization and job stabilization. When we've never experienced something like this, do they have the tools in their toolkit to be even be able to manage this?
Of course not. No, they don't. Just like what happens when, you go back and look at some of the crazy financial crisis. Well, at those times, the Feds, I mean, you could argue, did they have the tools? If they did, maybe these things would have never happened, right? So I think it's one of those things where we kind of, at least my prediction is we're going to have to go through the crash for the Feds to even realize what tools do they even need? What are the tools that we even need to solve for this? I don't even think we even know the answer to that yet. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's similar to, before there was a lot of banking regulation, I don't think it was I don't think it was as clear in terms of like what regulation needed to be in place in order to prevent certain calamities from happening. Now and then after it happens, like, well, of course you need regulations around this or that. Well, yeah, no shit, it happened already, right? You know what I'm saying? So I think it's probably going to be one of those things where I hate to say it, but maybe a sector of the economy is going to get wiped out, and then the Fed's going to look up and be like, "Well, wait a minute, what do we do here? Maybe it's rideshare, right? Because there are millions of drivers, millions of people who depend on driving Uber, driving DoorDash, driving these platforms daily to make a substantial living to take care of their family. So maybe it will take for an entire sector to get wiped out or start to get wiped out, right? Before we're like, holy shit, what do we do now? But I think to like proactively try to determine what those tools are, I think even if they did it, they probably will miss the mark. That's just my guess based on history.
Brylan, the couple of things that you mentioned about Social Security being done, pensions being done, I hope you know, and I hope the audience knows, and I hope the wealthy people know that ain't gonna fly. Like, that ain't gonna fly. You can say that. You talk about abstractly, oh yeah, your social security is gone, your pensions are gone,
Yeah,
nothing's
no.
gonna happen. Yo, what? Yo, billionaires are running away from taxes. Yo, what? Are y'all crazy? Like, are y'all crazy? Hey, that shit works right. I'm gonna just cut straight to it. That shit works right now because people ain't realizing what the fuck going on. If that shit starts becoming clear, like how you just articulated it, motherfuckers already gonna get, or they're gonna get mad. They're gonna get serious. They're gonna get angry. That survival instinct is gonna turn into me or you. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Me versus you. And this is something that Ray Dalio was talking about. Actually, he came out with an article just a couple of days ago saying the end of the world order is finally here. And he's been talking about civil unrest. He's been talking about the wealth gap where both sides don't understand each other. And eventually that's not gonna fly. That ain't gonna fly. That ain't gonna fly. Look, we sit back and be like, oh yeah, Social Security might go, pensions might go. Yeah, the billionaires, they'll just
He make it
run.
sound so casual.
We'll just run from state to state. Bro, there ain't gonna be no
Yeah.
escape. Yo,
I think there's going to be a rise of socialism, right? Exactly what's happening in New York, right? Where
right.
this is exactly how it's playing out in New York, right? Where I think New York is a prime example where it's very clear to see the wealth disparity there, right? That's like a clear and present place to see it, right? California being another one, but in New York, because of the density, it's obvious. It's in front of everybody's face. And so what you're seeing there is this shift to socialism where the working class are starting to look at that and be like, oh shit, this is not working. So I think you're right. I think, was it David Freeberg from the All In podcast? He kind of had a whole little summary. I'm not gonna recap what he said, but essentially his whole thing was like we might be going into the territory of another civil war where you're gonna have this clash between classes essentially because
Bro, I
you know
literally
while
wanted to say that. So, but yeah, keep going, man.
because like while Ray Dalio is saying that, I mean respectfully, his wealth is still growing. So he's saying
How
the
he knows?
problem.
He's basically
I
he's
hear
trying to
him.
say
I
he's
hear him.
scared. You know what
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
really saying?
I hear everything he's saying, but he's not doing anything to redistribute his wealth. You know what I'm saying?
He's scared. He's scared. He's old, and he's feeling like I'm gonna
No,
need the
I get
money.
it. I get it, but see, I think this is David's point though. Is like this is why the Civil War is coming, is because no billionaire, for the most part, they're not giving up shit. They're not giving up
They don't
shit. And
want
to
to.
your point, Rodney, the working class, they're not going to give up what they've been working for as well. They've been working their
No.
ass off for that. So you got two groups of people that
Yeah.
have misaligned incentives, and neither one
Yes.
of them are going to budge on that. So I mean, it's only one way to settle this.
Violence. Violence, bro. Violence. Like,
Yeah, I mean
yo,
that's America, right?
security products are gonna go next level. Cybersecurity, physical security.
Yes, sir.
Whatever happens, that person who was abducted, that famous person
Yeah,
whose mom
that
was
was crazy.
abducted, ransom, real ransoms coming back, real ransom, not like, your computer got locked up. No, like, I got your grandma, you know what I'm saying? I got your kids, you know what I'm saying? I got your brother, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is not normal. This is not going to be, because pressure creates a sharpness in the brain it's a survival instinct. People are not going to just die out. Everybody ain't just going to fall down and lay down and die. Like that brain gonna get sharper and sharper and sharper and sharper.
For
And
sure.
all it's gonna see is opportunity. All it's gonna see is calculations. Okay, what's this person got? Okay, that watch,
Mm,
that necklace. Okay, oh, okay, they came up that building. Okay, oh, this came from here. Oh, this went to the ATM. Okay, you you start becoming calculated. It's not gonna be, and Ray knows that. I agree with Dre on the fact that yeah, Ray, he the best he's doing is breaking down the problem. That's the best that he's doing. Uh, and but I know what he's motivated by. He is scared. Okay, he's
Mm.
older. He's not a young man. He does not want. He's
What did
scared.
he say the solution was? What
His
did he come
prescription.
to the same conclusion like war, or what did he come to?
I think his conclusion is the civil part. That there, I don't know what his real solution is because I think what he's basically saying is that both sides are going to refuse to look at it from each other's points of view. And I also think wealthy people might be a bit naive. Y'all feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they might be a bit naive. And here's what I mean by that: Texas, Florida, wherever you run to, initially, yes, you're gonna have that benefit of running away from the tax, right? You're gonna have that benefit. At some point, people are going to look at your pockets, including Texas, including Florida, including all these states that don't do it right now. They'll gladly say, "Hey, yeah, yeah, we're not California, we're not New York." They'll gladly say that, and then you come there to those places. You'll start building your lives. You'll bring value. You do all these things, and it'll start slow. All of a sudden, hey, we need 1%. Okay. Then you're like, okay, whatever. That's still not like. Then before you know it, we need 1.5. Then before you know it, we need 3. It's because it's almost in the nature of people to be like this. This is like a human nature thing. When you start having that much money, eventually you start fixing all these problems and with less money, and that's in your values. But then eventually you start looking at, you're like, wait, hold on. Do I fix the problem or do I just grab a little bit from over here? You know what I'm saying? Like it's a human nature thing. You know what I'm saying? So okay, you have 20 billionaires run to a place and they convince everybody to go to these places. Cool. Okay. How long does it stay like that? Probably not long, if I had to guess. Long enough so that you build your life there and you convince all the young people to go there, and long enough so that you create these new hubs there and create new jobs there. But you ain't gonna stay at you ain't running, is what I'm getting at. You're not gonna be able to run. You're not gonna be able to run.
Is that billionaire tax? Is it that bad in California? Isn't it like a one time tax?
Yeah, 5%.
It's so crazy how billionaires are acting like this is like this is going this is gonna change their lifestyle.
It's principle.
It's so funny to me. They're willing to uproot their whole family, sell their $50 million house, take a
Yeah.
loss on it, all of that shit just to
Yeah.
escape a little bit of tax. Like, yeah.
I understand where they're coming at, and it is their way of fighting back. I understand where they're coming at, and maybe it's necessary to kind of remind people that these people can leave and they do leave. At the same time, though, I think when they leave, especially places that are huge like New York and California, etc., there's always a ton of hungry, young, ambitious people that don't give a fuck at all, and they'll take the opportunities and they will make billion-dollar companies, $10 million companies, $100 billion companies, and you may do damage in the short term, but these places have tens of millions of people. Like, the pressures are so high, you're not going to devastate a state. It's not gonna happen. Not one of these type of states. Now, I will say, and we can pivot actually, 'cause we ended up spending a lot on that particular topic, but we can pivot actually. Now, I will say though, I might be worried about California if also Hollywood gets messed over with these new video models. So over the last week or so, there was this new video model called Simile, and it's creating these extremely realistic videos. And we're not just talking about the videos from Gemini and those other types of videos where they look really nice, but they're like 5-second clips, or the Grok videos. I saw one video of there was this girl playing LeBron, and hopefully I could try to find it. Hopefully people can look it up, but she was playing LeBron, and it literally looked like this girl was killing LeBron. Like, I was like, wait, hold on, like, well, how LeBron? I'm thinking like, how like, is this possible? And then I realized it's fake, and it was that real. And there's all these videos that are so real, and these things are being used for a lot of different purposes. For example, with the Epstein files, right? Which is going to be a topic. It's not going to be let go. Epstein is going to be a continual topic throughout this entire year. It's not going to get let go. But then you have videos of people putting Trump in certain scenarios, and is looking real and is looking a certain way. And the thing about these type of videos is that when you see them, because they're so believable, you're gonna until media literacy goes up to the next level, because there's always been internet literacy, media literacy, but there's a new level of it that is required now, and there's an arbitrage in it right now, right? Where people can create fake scenarios, fake videos, and people will not know that they're fake. You might think that you know, but the chances that you've seen a fake video and not known are higher than you think, and that's actually the problem. That's actually the problem. You don't get a chance to be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen some fake videos." You may not know. How do you know you've seen a fake video? That's the whole point. That's the point. And so, new video model called Simile. Dre, I think you mentioned that you saw some other video models, but if Hollywood also goes down, I might worry about California, because the wealth tax right now, it's a lot of tech billionaires that are kinda getting upset about that. Maybe some other billionaires too, but it's a lot of tech billionaires. I don't think that California's dependent on just tech guys. Like, you guys can leave, and we can leave, and California is still California, but if Hollywood also takes a hit, okay, it might get a little sticky out here, so I don't know.
So
I wanted to add something real quick because, yeah, just as you were like talking about that, I feel like, yeah, when I think back to the topic we were just discussing, I think at the heart of it was like human identity. And I think the topic that you're bringing up with like these video models is truth. And I think both of
Yes.
them are like a
Yes.
self reinforcing kind of like loop where it's like your identity is based off of what you believe to be true about the world and your relation in it, and like vice versa. Yeah, shit's gonna hit the fan really bad.
Yo,
And I thi-
it's crazy.
and when I think about it, like, I mean, yeah, think about like, different periods of time, rather if it was like Nazi Germany and how they used media to manipulate like German people's like perception of like Jews, or even think about the US
Right.
government when it came to like, the Black Panther movement. Like that was written media, visual, like pictorial media. And that was not at the scale at which video is today.
Yes.
And I think one of the things we really have to consider is like, I mean, what YouTube started in the mid kind of like, 2000s or whatever. And I would say video, you definitely saw the rise of video, but I don't think it compares to the acceleration at which TikTok went from no one knowing about it to everybody knowing about it and it becoming infrastructure for how people live their fucking lives. And just thinking about, what we know about tech and applying that same logic here, where we know each technological wave builds on the previous one and it gets faster and faster and faster, to your point of like we can't even discern that AI is, what AI video looks like unless it's like some shit that just does not make sense, right? Yeah, it just has me curious, like how fast has it already spread itself throughout society, right? Like through TikTok, Instagram, group chats, like you name it, but the effects have not even been seen yet, right? So yeah, I feel like this question of
Right.
truth, yeah, this question of truth, what is it? How do you verify it? Yeah, that's going to be a hot topic.
it's gonna take a decade or two. It's gonna take some time. It's gonna
Is
take
that
some
not
time.
too late?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It always is too late. It's always too
of
late.
course it is. Yeah, it's always that's what I'm saying, bro. Is like if I'm just looking at history, that's how it's always played out. That's how it's always played out. Is the damage is done first. At least that's like the American approach to shit. Is we wait for the damage to happen, and then we decide, okay,
Clean up.
let's really clean up now. In almost every case, is always like that. And so I do think you're right. It's already happening right now, but I just don't think we'll see it until maybe a decade or two from now. But I think about how long it took us to see the effects of social media. I mean, it's been around for forever. And we're now just now having it was up until recently, it was taboo to even talk about the effects of social media, right? Like nobody even had research on it. It's like, how are you, Facebook, the largest data machine, and you don't have research on this? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think it's gonna take some time before we start to see it. But I came across another model from China. It was created by ByteDance. So I mean, we talked about TikTok. This is the company that literally created TikTok, right? They launched a model. It's been around for some time called C Dance, and they just launched the second version of it, the C Dance 2.0. and it's a video model where basically they've trained it using American movie and TV show IP. That's kind of what a lot of executives from Hollywood are claiming, right? And we were talking about it before the recording of the podcast. I saw a video of a scene. It was a quick video, maybe 15, 20 seconds. It was just a quick little fake action scene between Tom Cruise and I think Matt Damon or like some other Hollywood actor. And it was just like a quick scene with dialogue and action, and it looked incredibly real. Like, again, if you were just quickly glancing at it, going through your feed, you wouldn't think twice about it. You just like, okay, cool, 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 right? It's no problem. And right now, again, Hollywood and I guess the association that kind of manages, but that protects actors, producers, and directors are very, very obviously very upset. And so I just recently saw an update that ByteDance, I guess, is going to push some new safety controls to make it a little bit better. But I mean, this is already happening. It's already eating up that part of Hollywood, and only will continue. So we'll see. And I think we just saw too a couple months ago. I mean, it's still early. Disney made a significant investment in OpenAI, right? So I mean, they already see the writing on the wall as well to start using some of this technology internally. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see in 10 years what the effects are.
Yeah. What Dre touched on was we tend to live in a predatory system, a systemically predatory system, in which case there's a product that comes out, it's really good for whatever the reason is. Capitalistic pressures, capitalistic incentives drive so much pressure to create profit that for at all costs, we try to get that thing out there. Capitalistic pressures also puts you in a position to where it's not in your best interest to let people know that there may be problems with whatever it is that you're selling. The only thing I would argue is that I think the loop might get quicker. I think the loop might go down from the typical 10 to 15-year loop. I think it might go down to 5 years, which is still a long time, if something is drastically creating serious problems. But that's just a guess. It may still be 10 years, 15 years. My guess the loop might get quicker as far as, but it's not going to matter though, because the amount of progress will be like every year will be like 10 years of progress. So even if the loop gets quicker, how we see the problem, we'll have progressed so much that 5 years it's still almost a similar outcome, basically. When I think about social media, I no longer see a generation that was empowered by social media. I see some people that were able to take it, turn it into opportunities, change their life, change their family. But I see majority victims, unfortunately. I see majority victims. I see a majority in these addictions, and it's really sad. It really is sad, and I really do feel genuinely sad at what I've seen and what I'm currently seeing. Now, in regards to these video models, I think Hollywood should stop crying. I think they should stop crying, and they should start figuring out what do they do about this scenario? The reason why they should stop crying is because nobody cares. Nobody cares. See, the reason why they're crying is because they know nobody cares. See, if consumers had enough integrity to say, you know what, I don't like that Will Smith that fake Will Smith movie. I'm not going to watch it. There would be nothing to cry about. But they know the consumer doesn't give a fuck. They know that. So that's what the crying is about. You know what I'm saying? But you got to remember, the consumer does not care. They know the consumer does not care because when we was growing up, we had the bootleg DVDs, we had the bootleg tapes. People getting up in the middle of Fat Albert. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's we had that. We had the DVDs. We had the
You funny, bro.
DVDs. We had the DVDs with the blurred out little the disc
Hmm.
blurred out, or the DVDs where you wrote in the you wrote the Sharpie, like, that's what we had. We ain't
Hey, the
never
kids will.
cared. But you
For
see,
sure.
they'll never know about that, but they know about some other stuff. They know about some other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Don't think they ain't they all paying for the OnlyFans. You know what I'm saying? Don't think don't think for 1 second that these kids don't know something. They know something that we don't know. And just like every kids are always gonna be kids, and because they know kids are funny because kids learn real quickly that they're being controlled. They at first they're oblivious to that everybody's controlling their life.
Hmm.
And then one day they're like, wait, hold on. If I reveal my intentions, suddenly things don't go how I want them to go. So then they learn to hide their intentions. And actually AI does the similar thing, which is why it's kind of scary. But these video models, And I'm not it's not to say that I'm not empathetic about Hollywood, it's just that to say that I don't see the solution being to try to rally people to change this mode. I think it was Jason Calacanis that said that Sam has the ethic line of Mark Zuckerberg, and he's more judgmental on that, but basically what he's saying is he is an incredible deal maker. He is top tier like how Zuck is, and what that means is that he's going to bring in AI and make sure that it's in by any means necessary. You know, regardless of the effects on any industry, whatever, he's bringing it in. He's not playing. It is what it is to make any deal he needs to make, etc. And so, the video models, yeah, and like Brian said, this idea of truth. I think one of the biggest things I'm seeing is that people are too confident in their perceptions. That's one of the biggest things. They perceive and then they don't verify. So there should be two things, what I see, what I hear, what I taste, what I smell, but then a second verification on whether that makes sense for the moment. So if I start tasting ice cream, but I'm on a podcast, I might be having a delusion. You know what I'm saying? I might be having a problem mentally. You know, if I'm in a room alone and I start hearing Dre talking, I need to know in my brain, hey, wait, hold on. I hear Dre talking, my perception, but Dre's not here. So I should not hear Dre's voice. So that leads me to another point. Unfortunately, I agree with the founder of Blueprint, Brian Johnson, that society is going to tip into a clinically society will tip into psychosis. There'll be a lot more psychosis because of the destabilization of all these different things happening. The loss of identity, the loss of work, the loss of purpose, the seeing things that seem true, not knowing what is true, and there's going to be a good amount of people that tip into clinical psychosis. And then additionally, we have these devices in people's hands that many don't know how to use in such a way where it doesn't dysregulate themselves. So going to sleep with your phone before you go to bed. And so it's stimulating. Like when we were growing up, imagine if you had your Game Boy in bed. Your parents would come into your room, give me that. Give me that. You ain't having no Game Boy or PSP in the bed. Like, give me that. Cause it was obvious back then, like that's not gonna be good for your brain. If you woke up, grab the Game Boy or whatever, or you woke up, started getting on Xbox. Hey, what you doing? You know what I'm saying? Find some homework or get ready for school or eat some breakfast. Like we used to have common sense. See, now we wake up, grab the phone, not only just grab the phone and send messages, we wake up, grab the phone, and go on social media. And social media has already determined what we're gonna see before we even woke up. It's like, okay, today Dre gonna see this. And today Brylan gonna see this. Today Rodney gonna see this. If I go on YouTube, what it shows me in the morning is different than what it shows me at night, which means that the algorithms learn me and they try to predict what I want to see and what I will click at certain times. And so, do you want the first thing that's in your brain controlled by an algorithm? Probably not. Probably not. I mentioned a lot of different things, but the video models is scary. The Hollywood situation is scary because I actually don't know what Hollywood should do. I want to see what they will do, and maybe we're not the guys to to talk about that. I don't know, but the models are really good, and they will be in people's hands. I mean, they're in people's hands now, but mostly a little bit more technical people. They'll be in consumers' hands by the end of the year, blockbuster level.
I think
Can I push
Hollywood.
back?
Oh, go ahead,
One
Brylan.
part, on one part, on one part. Of course,
I want to push back.
this beat the odds. This beat the odds.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I'll push back on in terms of like the models being in consumer hands is once again, I think it's going to come down to the economics. I think these models, given like it does take a good amount of infrastructure to be able to like run them. Do think there might be a world where whoever's providing those models may be able to price gate it. And because of that, only a certain layer of folks may be able to like afford it.
Okay, 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 okay. That's a fair. That's fair. Let me just clarify. Consumer,
Yeah, go ahead.
not the typical consumer who usually gets most of their products for free. Maybe what I'm saying is the person who's a creator who's already paying for different video tools, video editing tools, etc., stuff like that. That person will have some of these things by the end of the year. Now, will most people be able to afford to create a full 1 hour movie? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But if you could create a trailer for if you could create a 2-minute trailer, that might be enough to be able to get some funding. That might be enough to be able to rally people around, and it looks incredible. Like,
I'm almost as you were talking, literally one thought that I had is, yeah, over the last, few years, you've seen the rise of like streamers. So like the
yeah,
Steves, the Kai
yeah.
Cenats, things of that nature. What if they're the modern day or like next generation like truth seekers? Because their whole thing is it's real time. And like
Think so.
they're literally I mean, that's what they're doing. Everything is real time. Their whole life 24/7 is real time.
Yeah, I think they're valuable content. I think they are showing where the majority of basically, yeah, they're early. Yes, I would agree that they are early on a wave that has been brewing for 10 years, but maybe recently they became the mega stars within the last, 4 or 5 years. And I think we will see more streaming because, yeah, streaming it will be a very long time. I'm gonna say very long, maybe another 10 years before you can stream video, like fake video. Like, you may be able to generate it. Like, "Okay,
Mhm.
let me generate it, walk away from the computer, come back, and it's there after a few minutes." But to be able to stream it continuously, that's too much compute. That's way too much compute. So, yeah, I think streamers will yeah, it's gonna be some interesting dynamics there.
Going back to Hollywood real quick in terms of what they should be doing. I think in my opinion, the thing they should be doing is trying to change is trying to change consumers' minds around caring about whether or not the content they watch is real or not. Because the reality is the people are what controls like the laws in this country, whether we
Right.
realize it or not. It's not politicians, it's people. Right? When people decide to come together and we decide what we want and what we don't want and we decide to change it, then that's how change happens, right? And so I think what Hollywood should be doing is what they are doing is continuing to bring light to what's happening here and try to protect the human art form. And I think it's a no. And look. I mean, we all in tech, we all spend a lot of time talking about AI. We all embrace the technology, we love it. But I do think there is something around protecting that human art form, right? I think there is a good argument from Hollywood. They could sit back and do nothing, right? And they'll just get eaten away because the technology is coming and it's hard to stop it. We all agree with that, or they can keep being loud around it and change it and put regulation involved now to just slow the progress in that particular field, which I think probably does need to happen. Because I think otherwise, I don't see how you combat against it. I just don't. I mean, really, and you can have it at the studio level, right? Where you have studios that are okay. Now they take this technology and they try to use it, but then, bro, I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about actors, but there's so many people that work on a film set, so many people that work on a TV to bring a TV show to life. It's not just the characters we see on screen. And so I think there's real implications to that. And so it's like Hollywood can only do so much, you know what I'm saying? But I do think bringing that to the people and really trying to change the minds of the people, right? And make people care more about that art form, make people understand why that human art form is important. Why is it important to preserve it? Why is it important to keep lifting that up? Why is it important to not substitute that out for fake video? What actually happens when you do that to society? Because there's good benefit to artistic expression in that particular medium, right? So I don't know. I mean, in some parts of me, I love the technology. I'm all for it. I'm tech forward. But the other parts of me, I'm like, I do think there's value in preserving some of that. And the only way I think that can happen in America, at least, is through law. I think that's the only way it happens.
I think you're on to something there. My thing is I think they should do both. I think my earlier take was more like, don't like, stop, stop crying, don't do it, like, but I actually think they should do both. They should cry. They should cry. They should do something else. The one thing I do think they should really do is, you know, focus heavily, especially when they can, on in-person experiences, especially the movie theaters. I think movie theaters should go to the next level. I love the movie theaters. I love the fact that nobody's in the movie theaters anymore. I love the fact that I can go to AMC, in recline IMAX, and just sit, watch a movie, pick my favorite seat, recline back, watch a movie. Like I love Hollywood from that standpoint. So I don't want to see Hollywood fall out, etc. I actually think that if they could improve that experience to where people feel like they like okay, let's go to the movies. Or maybe even showing TV shows, TV viewings at theaters and changing it up basically. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, it was a movie theater and that's how it historically has always been. Okay, cool. We live in a new time. So maybe we have to do something different. Maybe the first episode of for the first two episodes of is coming out and you can see it in AMC and you can see it in the movie theaters, etc. So maybe they should start changing shit up. That's how I'm trying to look at it. I'm not saying don't cry about it, but you know what I'm saying? And, like cry about it if you want to. I don't think it's the most productive thing because the problem is everybody's trying to get you to care about something. Okay, cool, Drake, perfect, noble. It's like a trillion causes out here. There's a trillion causes, and you get drowned out in this world. And you know, because the music industry is saying the same thing. They're saying, "Wait, hold on, Spotify and Apple." You know, they're starting to get rid of DJs and create AI playlists. And, you know, some people are listening to music only to find out they're AI artists. And then it brings up the similar arguments like, should we protect the art and how do we protect artists? And these are similar arguments. The problem is, it's all getting drowned out by distractions. There's all these distractions. How do you get people to care when they have to when they're damn near and they're in debt, they can't pay shit. They're worried about their family. They're worried about this and that. Maybe they just want to turn on a channel and they don't care about. Yeah, they care about art. If you ask them in a personal conversation, they may care about it, but do they care about it enough to get up and vote on your behalf? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying don't try because maybe that's a little bit too defeatist, but I'm saying try maybe do both if you can. Do both if you can. Try to find a book because one of the others doing one of the other, I feel like is a risk.
Mm.
If you try to be like, "Hey, look, this is bad, guys. AI is bad. It's messing us up. It's destroying us. It's doing this." Don't cause. Actually, we get behind it. I'm not so tech focused that I don't have a heart. What most of my rhetoric is about, it is that I know people have a trillion things to care about, and and unless you can make it easy for them to show that support. So maybe even making it easier to show the support potentially, but you know, it gets tricky. But yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think this is a different. We're talking different problems though, right? Because I
yeah,
think
yes,
there's a problem at the production studio
hmm,
position, right? Like if you're Disney, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like they can afford to do whatever they want to do, right? Because they kind of, I mean, they're the controllers, right? If you're Universal Music, you can kind of do what you want to do, right? But if you're an independent artist, right? If you're just a producer, if you're just a lighting guy, right? If you just a director, right? If you just a sound engineer, you don't have the ability to go and change the experience and go put things in. Like you don't have that luxury. And so what's
yeah,
happening
yeah,
right now in the art forms, and this is why it is this way, there's a separation between the business side and the talent and labor. That is very clear distinction in Hollywood. And it has to be that way for a reason, right? But it is that way, right? So I'm actually not even talking about crying or whatever from the sake of the business side, because that doesn't even matter. Like, I mean, it does matter to me, but like they have more options. Disney has more
yeah,
options,
yeah.
right?
The
They're
independent,
making tens of billions of dollars a year. They have options to take shots on goals. But when you have actors, right, who aren't able to book certain jobs, aren't able to do certain things, they don't have as many options, right? And so that's kind of the bucket I'm going into, which is like, okay, well, if you want to change that, then really, to me, at the labor level, you got to get people to care about that. And it's not even just them. It's going to be the same thing as we talk about the factory workers, right? When they start getting eaten away as well. Well, if you want people to preserve those jobs, then we got to change some laws around that, right? And the same thing on the driver's side when we talk about Waymo. Well, if you want to preserve those jobs, we got to change the laws, right? So I'm looking at it more so from the labor aspect and what the labor side can do to try to stop the cannibalizing of their industry. Because I don't think the companies are going to do anything. I mean, Disney has no incentive to stop this shit. In fact, they have an incentive to accelerate it because of what it actually does to their business and their bottom line. But that is the exact opposite of the incentive of the actors, at least how I see it. So that's what I'm talking about. I think the actors need to like put more control in their hands and try to get people to care about it and or change it at the legal level, because I don't think the companies will do that.
I
you
do.
think the momentum? Sorry, Brian.
No, go
I'll
go
get
go ahead.
Do do you think the momentum is of AI is what is gonna make that challenging? It's almost like this is almost like the perfect moment because there's so many distractions. If you're the actors, if you're the musicians, if you're the graphic designers, if you're the software engineers, if you're the Uber drivers, who's gonna hear you? It's who gonna hear you? It's almost like the speed is the it's like the
Yeah, for
speed.
sure, for sure. But I think it'll be after the damage. Going back to what I
Okay.
said, which is I think I really think is gonna be. It goes back to what I said, which is maybe what needs to happen is you need a sector of the economy to get wiped out before we start actually having a real conversation. Because again, I'm only looking at it from the context of America, right? When we start talking about it at a global level, is way more complexity. But just in the context of America, the only way to preserve this cannibalization that I see is through legal means. So you're right. Nobody cares right now, but nobody's been truly wiped out yet. So these conversations are early and I mean maybe sort of premature from where we're really going, but I don't see any changes happen until we actually until some calamity takes place. But I'm just saying as a means of being somewhat proactive, I think actors, Hollywood, musicians, I think all of them should continue to do what they're doing, which is continue to bitch about it, continue to make noise, continue to point out the importance of protecting this art form, and continue to make people more aware. So, I mean, that's all you honestly can do at the individual level, right? I mean, what else can you really do? I don't know.
Yeah, I think yeah, to Rodney's point earlier around like potentially changing up like the formats and rollouts of some of these movies, it just brought up this very interesting thought of how might physical places like movie theaters become points of verification, right? Because
Interesting.
yeah, because assuming
The real movie. The real movie. Yeah, if you wanna see the real
exactly.
movie, yeah, the real show.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there might be something there. And then the other thing that kind of came to mind is I don't remember. I don't know if y'all remember when they recorded a live episode of Severance in Grand Central Station.
I did hear
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you're talking about like, these new unique formats, those might be, a few ways.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I do think so, for sure. And, that's funny that Severance did that 'cause I believe that's an Apple TV show. So,
Apple TV.
yeah, so that fits Apple for sure. And Apple's always known for high production shows and movies, like, their stuff is really, really high production. Anything that they come out with is really up there. And then Dre, yeah, I appreciate that distinction on who you were referring to in Hollywood because yeah, because when I think about, like, a Disney and I'm like, "Yeah, come on, guys." But nobody cares about, like but then, yeah, I do care about because I have friends who, you know, who are screenwriters, or I have friends who are music producers. I have friends who are in these creative spaces, and it was already hard enough to get by. It's already hard enough to get by, and then you're adding something else that almost makes it like it's like something else where and I think there will be I guess my someone of my prediction is that there'll be a collective because I do think that when I think about artists, music artists, or even graphic artists, or even, anybody. I'm a software engineer. My job, there's less need, there is less need for engineers. There are less engineers getting hired. It may not be enough to be extremely noticeable, but just the mere fact that people are coming online and saying, "Hey, I've been used to spending hundreds of thousands on engineers, and now I have Claude and now I have this, and now I have that, and I don't need to do that," means that somebody lost a job. Somebody lost some money off that. So, I'm in that group actually. I'm in that group. I see, and I think I see that, but then again, I'm like, not really. Maybe I should be telling a story of people saying, "Hey, look, let's slow this down because maybe what would I do without this thing that I've been doing since I was in high school? What would
Mm.
I do without this thing where whenever I needed stability in my life, I went towards it. If I lost that, then what do I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky, and I can see how from people's perspective. I can see it. I can see it. I know we have like not that much time left, but I think there's one topic that we wanted to get to. Maybe we could do short and is the Claude bot thing. Maybe just in short, Claude bot. was acquired by OpenAI. The amount is kind of up in the air about how much it was. People are saying it was,
Mhm.
8, 9 it was a 8, 9 figures, a big deal. Um, where Sam Altman, and I forgot, I think the guy's name is Peter, if I recall correctly, uh, and Clawbot was essentially an open source agent platform that allowed people to connect, if I recall correctly, Claude. And it could run all these different tasks. And the task wouldn't be through your traditional chat interface. It would like text you and go back and forth in a conversational standpoint. And it could do all these different tasks for you. It can make software for you. It can make, somebody had it make, courses for their kids that they're homeschooling. Some people had it, find different investments. Some people had it read emails and then like, others, how should it respond? Should it respond? Should it clean out the email inbox? Just a variety of different tasks and essentially an AI agent that has basically access to your life. So it got really hyped and people were buying a ton of Mac Minis. I think part of the reason why was because the tokens, or in other words, each time you do an AI request, it costs a certain amount of tokens, and tokens add up if you're doing a ton of requests. And so the Mac Minis seem to be an attempt to get, high functioning, high memory, hardware that can run these models, these local models, so then you don't have to pay as much for the tokens through OpenAI or Anthropic.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about it. Have y'all tried it yet?
I haven't.
I haven't tried it yet either. Have you,
I'm gonna
Rodney?
be honest. Go ahead, Rodney.
No, I haven't. I'm I think it's interesting. I haven't tried it because it's one of those things where hype is crazy, and, we in an industry where we can't hop behind everything that gets hyped up.
For
Like
sure.
r
Yeah,
like, right now, it seems like every week there's something that's getting hyped up. Every week. It wasn't always like this. So, it's a little bit more of those things where I haven't tried it. I do think Sam popping in and buying it gave validation to maybe that it might be something worth looking more into, but I get the impression that people are overselling the capabilities. And I think some of the things around security are something that's concerning me too. You give this AI bot full access to your credit card and all these other things. Hopefully you have a limit on that card and hopefully you have like this guardrails in place and you just don't but yeah, no, I haven't tried it yet.
yeah. I haven't tried it either, but I think, yeah, you bring up a really good point about hype. It's not the first time we've seen something like this. I think the interface has changed, right? Where instead of it being like an app, it's meeting you where you are in your iMessages, Telegram, WhatsApp, or whatever, right? But I think the larger lesson here is that I think you're seeing the trend of orchestration becoming more and more important, right? Because essentially that is what it's doing underneath, right? Like it's orchestrating like, hey, based off the context of this conversation, like which agent is the best agent to kind of like speak to this? Then there's the orchestration of like if it's connected to your credit cards, like, and I think that's the reason why that is important is because I do think, once again, think back to what this was a few months ago when OpenAI originally rolled out. I think it might have been GPT 5.2, but they had rolled out the model router. Once again, that is just another idea of like orchestration. And I think the orchestration with OpenClaw has become better. And obviously, they were using Claude before, but I think the larger thing that I would take away from this is like orchestration overall is becoming better. And when it reaches a level, I think where it intersects with like more complex tasks, like, and the way I would define complex tasks is like by time. And I think Sam Altman, he had a really good framework of kind of thinking about it around like there's 5 minute tasks, there's 60 minute tasks, there's 2 to 3 day tasks. Like, and you can just imagine to be able to tackle those, it's going to have to orchestrate a lot of different things to make that happen. And so, yeah, I don't know if I really buy into the hype of it like right now, but I do think the trend is going in a direction where we can expect these agents to get better and better, not necessarily because the raw intelligence of the models is becoming better, but it's because they're becoming better at orchestrating all the different pieces required to achieve a given task.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I was thinking about buying a Mac Mini and just kind of testing it out. But then I ran across some of the same concerns from a security standpoint. I don't know. I'm gonna have to spin up some
Yeah, it'll slow you down.
sandbox some sandbox accounts or something. I still want to try it though. I'm waiting. I'm super bullish on like this agentic future where we will have where people. I think one of y'all mentioned people will become more managers. I see like the world where people are just kind of managing these assistants.
Yes.
I think that's gonna be an important part of like where we're going. So I'm very, very bullish on that. I think we are still very early. So to me, I'm less I just not really about where we are today. I'm more about where we're going. And so I'm excited for us to get there. But I do think it's so early right now that all of this is basically gonna look like toys in the next 10 years
Facts.
compared to where we're gonna be. So I do think to Rodney's point, it is good validation, maybe that OpenAI did this, or maybe it's just a move of like, let's just take this off the market to silence the noise a little bit. I mean, it could be a distraction piece too, right?
Well, one thing I do want to say is the structure of how they're setting it up. So, they acquired, him and his small team, but they're still keeping OpenClaw like as its own nonprofit kind of like foundation. I don't know if y'all saw today, but Manus, which got purchased by Meta a few weeks ago, rolled out their Manus agent built on top of OpenClaw. And so,
Wow.
yeah. And so I anticipate, actually, I don't know if I would anticipate Anthropic doing something given their like enterprise. They would probably try to figure out what does that actually look like within a enterprise type like of setting. But I did find it telling that like, because I think I had read something that it actually came down to Meta was trying to acquire OpenClaw as well. And so it's crazy to think that like they spun it up this quick. Like the day this dude got announced that he was acquired, they rolled out something. So yeah, it's gonna heat up.
Well, my last thought on that is I just don't think the CEO of Anthropic has what it takes. I hate just have
Bro,
to throw that.
you should have
I
started the
just had to
podcast
just
with this,
I
bro.
know, I know.
You
I
should have
just couldn't
started
help
the
myself.
podcast.
I
This is
couldn't help
crazy.
myself, bro. I couldn't help myself. Bro. I know because we actually for the audience, we're gonna actually wrap up really soon. But so I just threw that in there. I don't think he has what it takes. Like I think first of all, he needs to shut up about safety. He needs to just shut that shit up.
I can't believe you're saying this.
He needs to shut up about safety. He needs to. He is just as financially motivated as every other player in the game. He's trying to position himself as the moral authority out of everybody. I hate people like that. You know what I'm saying? I hate that. These if these models are so dangerous, shut it up. Stop it. Stop it. You know what I'm saying? He knows Anthropic has to make returns, just like like OpenAI, just like Facebook, just like Gemini. He knows that. So if you didn't want to do this, you shouldn't have hopped in the game. Stop talking about all this shit. So I get annoyed by all that off the jump. I don't think he even got what it takes. You know what I'm saying? I don't even think he even got what it takes. He's too nice. He's trying to play both sides. We gonna win, but there's sharks in the water, and we gonna act like we a little fish in the water. Like there's sharks in the water. Zuck is in the water. Sam is in the water. Like all these, you're not gonna be able to. Like
I
you
mean,
understand what I'm saying?
I don't follow him as much, so I don't really hear him talking as much. But I can appreciate
Don't
him
listen to that.
better
Don't
than
listen to him.
the perplexity guy. I'm so tired of him, bro. I'm glad he's like gone away for a little bit.
First of all, we 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 paused for a year. We didn't do a whole We've been wrote him off. We've been wrote him off. Look at my old episodes. What I said about him.
For
I've
sure.
been wrote him off.
Wait, Brylan, are you still using perplexity? Is that still part of
Yeah,
your
yeah,
daily
I know.
flow?
He
Bro,
hasn't brought up
bro,
complexity in months, bro. He uses it though. I
I
seen him. I see him use
still
it.
use Perplexity. They got some cool features, man.
No, Brylan. What it is that Brylan likes craftsmanship. Brylan likes good products. But I think Brylan overlooks cutthroat founders. I think Brylan overlooks what the winners start like look like. Brylan, yeah, Perplexity it looked great, felt great, etc. But what did I say on that podcast last year? I said he's distracted. What is he doing? What is he talking about? He's doing too many things. Like, what is he doing? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's not serious. And now he's not in the conversation. You know, I'm saying, and look, I'm gonna say this about, and I'm saying this about the Anthropic guy right now. I'm telling you, he is scared. He
No, no,
knows.
no, no.
Oh,
No, he's not.
no, bro,
No, he's not,
what?
bro.
He should be. He should be. He should be.
Yo,
He has to be scared, bro. He
he's
has to be.
scared. He's
He should be.
scared. Yo,
He should be.
wanna know how I know? Wanna know how I know? Why is he wasting his breath talking about all this safety stuff? He seemed worried. What you worried about, bruh? Like, it's over. You already hopped in the game. You about to do some messed up shit. If you wasn't about to get dirty and do some messed up shit, you should not have hopped in this game. He probably thought, oh, Sam doing it fucked up. So let me start my own thing. He's smart enough and he actually ended up making some huge progress. And now he see how crazy he like J. Cole. He's seeing how crazy this shit about to get. And he like, oh shit. Like I don't want to play. Like, bro, you Brylan, you have you not heard what he been talking about?
I have. I think he's our modern day Oppenheimer. The same way Oppenheimer after the drop of the nuclear bomb on Japan came out and started making everyone aware of
Okay.
the
Okay.
impact, and it
All right.
led to, nuclear deterrence. That is him. He's just being proactive. And guess what?
Okay.
Unlike
Proactive,
Sam,
proactive.
he's
I can see that connection. At first, I didn't know where you was going with that, but I can see that. I can see that.
So he's like, yeah, okay, that prove okay, perfect. He's a scientist. He ain't no founder. He does not have what it takes.
he got 14
Perfect.
billion of them. What?
He doesn't have what. Yeah, and he's getting scared. Watch,
No, 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 no.
bro. It ain't strategic. It ain't strategic to be like, oh yeah, the models are about to get dangerous. No shit. Duh.
Hey,
Why is that? You think
why?
Sam don't know that? You think Zuck don't know
No,
that?
no,
You
no,
think
no.
Microsoft don't know these models about to get dangerous? Why is he wasting his breath talking about that shit?
Because he's been the most consistent, and for the people that it really matters to, which is
Okay,
going to
he's a
be
weak
this
ass
business.
scientist because he's a weak ass scientist.
No, no,
He's a
no.
weak ass.
You
He a weak ass
no, not
scientist.
no, 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 no. If
That's
he's a
what.
weak ass, hold up. If he's a weak ass scientist, none of this AI shit will work. He's the one who discovered the scaling law,
He's smart. He's smart.
but he's
I
a
ain't
weak
saying.
ass scientist.
No, I'm saying. No, okay.
He might be
No,
the best
okay.
scientist.
All right. You gonna twist what I'm saying? Yo, you
We
gonna
should have
twist
had
what I'm
this
saying?
earlier. Let me
No,
take
no,
it there.
no,
Let me take it
no,
there. Let me take it there. This is
no. Let's
because
take it there, bro.
this
Let's
is why
take it
they're
there.
going to win. They're going to
They're gonna
win.
win. No, hold on.
Yes,
Stop. They're gonna win,
yes,
bro.
yes.
You said OpenAI was going to fail in a year. You said Perplexity was going to be
He
top
said
three
Perplexity was going to
products.
win.
You said Perplexity is going to be top three products. Brylan, you know a good product when you see it. You just don't know a good founder when you see one. That's all it is. That's all it
Hold
is,
up.
bro. You know good
No,
products, bro. You know good
this is a
products.
great
That's
founder. Bro.
who.
He's printing money. He's financially responsible,
Who the
and
best
he
founder though?
doubled
Who the best? Who the best though?
Dario because he doubled down. He doubled down. No, he doubled down on the thing that matters most in his code, bro.
Bro, Codex. Bro, what? You don't.
Nigga, Codex got inspired. He was inspired by what he was seeing from
And the distribution is killing Claude. See, Sam. If Sam wasn't if Sam wasn't so busy trying to beat Google, which is probably the one that actually needs to be worried about,
Sam is trying to beat Google. He's
he is
trying
trying
to
to beat Google.
survive. No, he's trying to survive. They don't have the money, bro.
But who is he surviving up against, though?
Himself. That I will say, they are in a battle against themselves because they have gotten into a tricky situation.
So then how they compete? Then how you gonna
Hey,
say Anthropic gonna win?
actually, and this proves the motherfucking point. If you remember a few months ago on the BG Squared podcast with Brad Gurley, the Brad Gerstner dude has Sam Altman on there, and it became a whole meme when he was like, "You should sell your shares." You know that nigga Brad Gerstner literally just invested in Anthropic's latest round. Most of the investors in Microsoft has strategically moved all the way to Claude.
They got hands everywhere. These companies are trying to get they're putting money everywhere. Amazon has invested in Cloud and OpenAI. These companies are putting money in all buckets because
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt them.
that's just good corporate strategy, right? I mean, if you run a Microsoft investment fund, would you not do that?
But would you invest in a shitty founder?
I mean, you got to take shots.
All right. Brylan see, this is what Brylan does. This is what Brylan does. This is what he does. He hears what I'm saying. He sees everything what I'm saying, but he does the straw man. He picks the weakest part of what I'm saying and he twists it to make his point. How about you directly address the strongest parts of my arguments, which is that he keeps talking about this safety shit. We already know AI is gonna come and create serious problems. Shut
Yeah.
up. Shut up.
No. He can't
Just
shut up.
keep
It's the
he
brand.
can.
So are they basically doing what Apple kind of did? I don't know when it started, but
Privacy.
we all remember at one point in time the narrative with Apple just kind of shift to all of a sudden they privacy. Like they went heavy, doubled down on that shit, and now all of a
Yes.
sudden it became part of the brand. So it seemed like, is that kind of the direction
It's
that they're
double
kind of
down.
going
It's
into?
double down. It's double down on safety. That translates to the way that shows up in their product is the whole idea of like this AI constitution. That will eventually become a global thing. That will become a global thing. The
Right.
second thing too is also like this focus on enterprise. But the way they're starting to communicate it to the larger world is we don't do ads. So think about all the videos that they did, just taking shots at OpenAI for one and
They're gonna do ads in 5 years or less. They're gonna do ads in 5 years or less. But
position. Marketing positioning
they're
will
gonna do
eventually
ads.
matter when everything is a commodity. When everything is a commodity, how do you compete in a market or stand out in a market? I do think it's going to come down to
I can
obviously
agree with that.
distribution,
I
but
can agree
market
with that
position.
brand. I can agree with
Yeah.
brand being a strong linchpin for sure. I can agree with that.
I can agree with that as well. It's
We
just
should
not
have
my
started
it's just not my argument. I can agree with that as well. It's just not my argument. It's just not my
Yeah.
argument. My argument is he is spending more time doing that than trying to be the top dog in AI. He's already quit. Brylan is saying
No.
he's
They
gonna
are the
win.
top dog. They are the top
You
dog.
can't be
In
serious. You
enterprise AI.
can't be serious. You can't be serious.
Nah, bro, they're not the top dog.
All right, bro.
On
Bro,
Twitter. On Twitter.
OpenAI's entire enterprise revenue, just enterprise, is bigger than the entire business of Anthropic. They
Bro,
can't be leading. Leading in what?
like Google
Leading in what?
I'm
please.
somebody that likes to go pull up numbers.
Bro, I
Pull
don't
up the
care what
numbers.
number you pull.
Pull
I don't
the
care what number
numbers.
you pull. Anthropic is, bro, their revenue is small, bro.
Use the
They're small, bro.
perplexity. Use
They're
the
small.
perplexity to pull up the numbers.
Come on, bro.
Here he
Anthropic
go.
is small, bro.
Yeah,
Anthropic
you're
is
pulling
small.
up. Yo, no, we should have. Yeah, maybe we should have started it off that way, and I dragged it out a little bit longer. I didn't mean to. We can still hop it off this way on the next podcast. On the next
Yeah, we
We
could.
podcast,
got to,
but I was
because I'm
right
coming.
about I was right about that founder, and I was right about OpenAI, bro. Like I was right about both of those. And Brylan, unfortunately, you was wrong about those on record,
Hey,
and
man.
and it's okay. You
It's
was
still
on record.
early. It's still early.
It
It's
doesn't
just they
matter.
just taking a
It doesn't
pop.
hold on. It doesn't matter that on record. On record, you were wrong, and I was right about those things on record. On record, I said the Perplexity founder is not going to make it. I said, what is he doing? What
But
is he
they still in
doing?
the game. They still in the game. Like honestly, I do think they're quietly making a pivot towards finance. My prediction for 2026 they will double down on finance and attack
So
the Bloomberg term.
I'm about to say they're gonna be the Bloomberg 2.0. That's what you predicted for them?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Bro, please
We'll
stop.
see.
Yo,
We'll see.
Brylan,
We'll see.
please stop.
We gotta wrap it up though. We'll pick it up on the next one.
We'll
We
wrap it
gotta
up.
pick this back up for sure. All right, y'all.
Yeah.